You're listening to The South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast by Ohio State fans for Ohio State fans on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Welcome back to The South Stands, everyone. From San Francisco, I'm your host, Zach Moore. Today is Monday, October 19th, and it's game week. I'm very happy to be joined this evening by fellow South Stands contributor Paige Van Horn, our man on the ground in Denver. PVH, what's the word out in Denver?
Sunny and warm, buddy. As usual, sunny and warm.
Excellent. All right, buddy. Good to be with you this evening, as always.
Yeah.
Before we get started, I want to start with some housekeeping items for our listeners real quick. We have a new website you can visit at southstandsosu.com. You can listen to all of our podcast episodes there and check out our new blog. I've actually written a few pieces for the blog already. Our good buddy Sloaner wrote a piece recently. It's actually really funny and thoughtful. You should check that out if you got some time. I'd also like to invite our listeners to head over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review the podcast. We'd greatly appreciate your feedback. Also, give us a follow on Twitter at South_stands. That's South_stands. I'm on that damn thing all day long, posting new stuff and reposting stuff. So give us a follow there. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Finally, if you have any questions or feedback for us, you can send us an email at thesouthstandsosu@gmail.com. So at long last, the seemingly never-ending off-season for the Buckeyes is coming to a close, PVH. What a long trek through the desert that was, man. I thought we would never get here. Ohio State will begin, Ohio State's going to begin an 8+1 regular season schedule starting this Saturday in the Horseshoe at noon Eastern against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. According to ESPN.com, Ohio State is a 26.5-point favorite. I believe that line's moved a little bit since it opened. The over-under is 64.5. The game will be broadcast on Fox with Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt on the call. Now, PVH, a bit later on, I want to get your Concernometer score. We're going to fire up the Concernometer for this game as well as a score prediction. But before we go there, any high-level thoughts on this game you'd like to share?
We can get into the game. I think just it doesn't even really feel real like we're in game week, right? And I can't. How many people like texted that or tweeted that this morning? I think it's pretty comical just how so many people out there have just been dying for a little Ohio State football distraction. So in some regards, doesn't quite feel real. Super happy it's here. Let's hope, they can run this quick schedule without any COVID pauses and, we get our Buckeye fix for 2020, something that I think we all need.
Yeah. That I definitely count me in that group. Actually, it is interesting. You may have just mentioned Ohio State's toughest opponent on this 8+1 schedule, which is COVID. I don't know that any other team on that schedule, any other group entity, whatever you want to call it, on that schedule really poses a real threat to Ohio State. COVID, however, does, just in terms of them getting through the schedule completely unscathed without any cancellations. I thought it was interesting today. Ohio State announced the Ohio State capacity for games this season, 1,600 people, which includes both teams and parents and family and that sort of thing. 1,600 people. It's going to be really weird, looking those shots when they pan back in the field and seeing those empty stands.
That is interesting. I didn't hear that. So that's a Mike DeWine governor decision then, right? I guess it's state by state and governor by governor.
I think so. Well, the Big Ten had announced that it was not going to have fans at these games. Now, when I talked to Gallagher 4 weeks ago, we both kind of felt like maybe that's something they might relax as the season goes along. So we'll see. I don't know, I guess, but the numbers across the country are going up. So I'm not sure. I know Ohio State has also really committed itself. The athletic department, Gene Smith, they're out there really discouraging people from having watch parties as well. They don't want watch parties to turn into super spreader events. I mean, obviously they don't have any control over that, but they're just trying to send the message for people to be responsible and that sort of thing. So we'll see how it goes. Obviously, the backdrop of this season is unlike anything you and I have ever experienced before. We're obviously hoping for the best. The Buckeyes are 7-1 all-time against the Huskers, 5-1 since Nebraska joined the Big Ten. Ohio State has won the last 5, including a 48-7 demolition of the Huskers in Lincoln last season. And the game really didn't even feel that close to me. I don't know how you felt about that. To me, it felt like that they could have scored 60, 70 that night if they wanted. Nebraska's only win in this series came in 2011, also in Lincoln, and that was against interim head coach Luke Fickell. Ohio State went into that game reeling from that tattoos for memorabilia scandal, which forced the resignation of head coach Jim Tressel, the departure of star quarterback Terrell Pryor, the suspensions of several other key players. Ohio State jumped out to a 27-6 third quarter lead in that game until freshman quarterback Braxton Miller had to leave the game with an ankle injury, and that allowed the Huskers to get back into the game and eventually win it 34-27. Now, since that game, Ohio State is 5-0 against the Huskers, averaging 53 points a game against the Black Shirts, winning by an average margin of 34. I mean, it has not been competitive at all for the most part over those 5 games. It's been kind of a name-your-score affair for Ohio State. Now, after a strong finish to the 2018 season, Scott Frost's Cornhuskers were the kind of the chic pick to win the Big Ten West in 2019, but instead Nebraska crumbled under the weight of expectations, finishing a disappointing 5-7 and 5th place in the Big Ten West. Now, according to Phil Steele, the Huskers returned 15 starters, 10 on offense, 5 on defense. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Quarterback Adrian Martinez returns. However, reports out of Lincoln are that redshirt freshman Luke McCaffrey, that's right, if you recognize that name, that's from the renowned football McCaffrey family from your neck of the woods, right, Paige?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Now, he's the younger brother of Christian and Dylan. So Luke is pushing Adrian Martinez for the starting job. Those are the reports out of fall camp. In fact, Mitch Sherman, who covers Nebraska for The Athletic, wrote just a few days ago that Martinez and McCaffrey are options 1A and 1B at quarterback. And he said not necessarily in that order. So to me, that says both of these kids are going to play on Saturday.
So wait a minute. Is this the kid that transferred from Michigan or no?
No, that's
Dylan.
Brother. That's Dylan, also an older brother of his. And actually, Dylan has not yet picked a transfer destination, as I understand it.
Oh,
so yeah, this is a younger brother. I don't know how many of these kids, McCaffrey kids, there are. It just seems like there's an army of these like great football players out of that family.
He's a good Catholic boy, so they're pumping him out.
So we also know that Nebraska's leading rusher, Dedrick Mills, who ran for 745 yards and 10 touchdowns last season, averaged about 5 yards a carry. He's solid, not spectacular, but we know that Mills returns, as well as versatile sophomore receiver H-back Wan'Dale Robinson. Robinson caught 40 balls for 453 yards last year and 2 touchdowns. Now, they lost their leading receiver, J.D. Spielman, who had been there for a couple of years. And then actually, I think he caught a long touchdown a few years ago against Ohio State. Now, he transferred to TCU this offseason. So I don't know, not a lot to really scare you on offense. It is intriguing, I think, the quarterback situation. Not a lot is known about McCaffrey at this level. So it'll be interesting to see which way that goes. To me, it could go one of 2 ways, right? It could either really work in Nebraska's favor, or it could be a total disaster. You're rolling a redshirt freshman out there in his first action against a top 5 Ohio State team in the shoe. We'll see. Defensively, I can't really say what Nebraska returns on defense. I'm not expecting much. We don't have a lot of time to do a deep dive into what Nebraska brings into this game, but if you want more detail on that, I invite you to check out the 4 to 6 with A&B podcast with Bill Landis and Ari Wasserman on The Athletic. They did a pod with Nebraska beat writer Mitch Sherman that was pretty illuminating. They really dive deep into this matchup, so I invite our listeners to go check that out. We just don't have the time to really dig into what Nebraska is. All right, Paige, so given all of that, why don't you give me your thoughts on the game and a concernometer score?
Yeah, the big question is McCaffrey that good or is Martinez that bad?
Yeah,
that's the question you have to be asking yourself if you're a Nebraska fan. Rolling out a redshirt freshman, first game of the season, limited spring. Limited fall, and oh, by the way, it's against Ohio State. That probably just reeks of pure fucking desperation by Scott Frost.
Yeah.
And it also probably, maybe reeks like I need to just start to move on from Martinez. I mean, he has glimpses, right? I mean, he's super duper athletic. But how long are you going to roll with that guy? And even though Frost got a gigantic contract extension, he's got to start to produce a little bit. So I'm going to say that is a very bad sign for Nebraska. So with that, I'm actually going to go negative on my concernometer and fall at about a -3 here. Okay. I just don't even see how this is going to be close. I think I don't think Nebraska can match up with us to begin with, and then all of the last God, who knows how many 9 months of fury by Ohio State and Ryan Day coming off that Clemson game. I mean, this could be really bad. It could be really bad.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I'd been weighing that variable, the quarterback variable, whether it could turn out to be kind of an accidental advantage for Nebraska, bringing in a kid, not a lot of film on him. It's certainly at the college level, and maybe that they're able to do some things offensively against an Ohio State defense that, let's face it, there's a lot of new faces on that defense. So maybe there is some yards or points to be had maybe early on that keeps the game a little close. The one thing, I'm looking at this through the lens of what Ohio State is bringing into this game and what the situation has been for Ohio State. Of course, they had the no spring and facing all the same disadvantages in terms of what COVID has presented as Nebraska. I am a little concerned about the news coming out of fall camp in Columbus about the defensive tackle position. We were hoping that Teron Vincent and Haskell Garrett would both be ready to go. Now, Teron Vincent had a season-ending shoulder injury last year, and he's still recovering that. It's been reported, and he's not quite ready to go. Haskell Garrett had that very scary situation this offseason where he got shot in the face, and he's still healing from the gunshot wound. Now, those two factored in to be probably the number 1 and number 2 at the 3 technique. Doesn't sound like either of those two guys are going to be available. So Ohio State's running out of capable bodies in the interior of that defensive line. So it concerns me a little bit. I don't want to exaggerate, especially in this particular matchup. Next week against Penn State, I might be a little bit more concerned. The other thing is that there are a lot of new faces in the secondary. So could there be a situation where Ohio State comes in against a Nebraska defense that might be grasping at straws right now, as you say, maybe a little desperate for production at quarterback to get things going offensively? But Ohio State is coming into this game with some key guys, key projected starters who haven't played a ton. The first is Marcus Hooker. Reports out of fall camp is Marcus Hooker has won the free safety job. He's going to be the starting safety. A lot of outlets have reported that. Now, Hooker played something like 81 snaps last year. I'm sure he's very talented. We know he's got the pedigree, right? His brother was an amazing safety, All-American back in 2016. But we're talking about a starting free safety with 81 snaps last year under his belt. The other interesting news is the player that has emerged at that all-important slot corner, so the third starting cornerback position, is Marcus Williamson. Now, Williamson also played only about 85 snaps last year. He's a little undersized, 5'9". Now, he's been with the program a while. He's a senior, but hasn't played a ton. And we're asking him now to play starter-level snaps. And then, of course, we know on the outside, we got Sevyn Banks and Cam Brown will be stepping in there, playing along with Shaun Wade. Now, Banks and Brown saw a lot more action last year. Brown was actually kind of the third outside corner, so I feel better about those guys. Maybe I'm just trying to make this discussion interesting, but there is some youth and inexperience in the defense. There's not going to be any Chase Young there. Malik Harrison was another guy that created a lot of explosive plays for them. So a lot of new faces on that defense. I'm setting the concernometer at 3. That's where I had it the last time you and I talked about this matchup. I also did a piece for the site having a peek at each of Ohio State's 2020 opponents. I gave a concernometer score for each. And in that, I had Nebraska at 3. I'm going to keep them at a 3 with maybe, I would not be surprised if maybe Nebraska is able to move the ball and score some points early and maybe force us to the refrigerator for, an extra couple of beers before halftime. We'll see. What are your thoughts on that stuff?
I mean, come on. If you weren't worried about something, what would you be doing? Right? You're always He's going to find something to be. All Ohio State fans need to be worried about something.
Oh, right, exactly.
And we can nitpick this thing to death. I mean, everything that you said, I think are valid points. I just don't think they're valid points against Nebraska.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then the other thing. So let's go back to the concernometer just to refresh everybody's memory. So a 3, that wouldn't mean like you think Nebraska could, because I find that absurdly high, to be honest with you. Like, does that mean 3 out of 10 times you think Nebraska could win this game?
Well, I don't know if it's that scientific. I'm not a mathematical guy.
Well, I'm just going to give you some grief because I think that's a little high.
You think it's a little high? Okay, fair enough.
I need to talk you off the ledge a little bit. I mean, on what universe is Nebraska going to win this game? That doesn't mean they can't put up some points.
Yeah.
Maybe, surprise us with a few things, but I mean,
I tell you what, the last time they visited Columbus, 2018, they led the game at halftime. That was a 36-31 Ohio State win. Now we remember that Ohio State defense had a lot of issues. They really couldn't run the ball that year. They weren't really great on the offensive line, and they weren't a very potent running team. So they were a flawed team, allowed Nebraska to hang around. Now Martinez had a great game in that particular game. Actually, that's really kind of what propelled him and what made Nebraska kind of the chic pick to win the West the following season was how he performed in that game. I don't think it's outlandish that Nebraska comes in. Do I think Ohio State could lose the game? No, I don't. I'm not worried about that. That's not what it's going to keep me up at night. Do I think they could make it competitive because Frost is a good coach? He does have some skill guys. They're not spectacular, right? We're not talking about, Alabama or Clemson here, but they've got some guys that can do some things, especially if this young McCaffrey comes in there and they don't really know what he can do. And you've got a lot of new faces on that defense. I would not be surprised if Nebraska can put up some early offense, and maybe it takes a little time. Well, Ohio State, a little rusty, right? They've got what? Just a handful of, I don't say a handful, but a few weeks of contact practices under their belt. If there's a time where you could maybe catch Ohio State, right? Where you could catch them, maybe not at their peak, it would be this week. Because we know anything that they don't do well on Saturday, they're going to go back into the lab and they're going to have that shit straightened out and fixed and running at peak efficiency. So I would not be surprised if this is a closer game early on than we expect. I don't know. Where does that land with you? Do you still think I'm being a worrywart about this, or what do you think?
No, I mean, it's possible. I just don't think it's likely.
Yeah.
All those things are possible. A shortened season, I just think they're going to be very focused, and there's no margin for error to run this gauntlet with COVID. I think they need to look impressive from the get-go. I wish the game wasn't at noon, but for whatever reason, that must draw a big rating because with me, you just make Ohio State primetime every single weekend. Right. So, maybe it's 30 and sleeting in Columbus. I didn't really check the weather. That's a possibility. It's possible. I just don't think it's going to happen. But what I do think that you did kind of talk me into is perhaps the over on this game.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I haven't looked at it. The line is definitely moved up, right? I think you said it.
Yeah.
26.
It's up to 26.
I think it opened at 21.
Yeah. The over under 64.5.
Shit, I almost like Ohio State just as the over in this game.
Yeah. Well, hey, they've gone over 60, I think, like 3 different times since Nebraska since they came into the conference. Well, the other thought I had is maybe it won't even matter. Maybe they'll have some kinks to work out on defense, but I'm really interested to see is what level is Justin Fields going to be at with those receivers? Justin Fields and Chris Olave in particular. You want to talk about a quarterback receiver duo that got a lot to prove, a big chip on their shoulder after the way their season ended last year. I'm really interested to see how many notches up this offense is, especially in the passing game from last season. You got a veteran offensive line, a great talented quarterback who I expect has taken several leaps or two since last season. That passing game, I think, is going to be a sight to behold. And I even think they're going to be really good in the run game. I really do. I think Ryan Day wants to be able to impose. First of all, he knows he needs a potent running game to be a championship level team. I think he wants a running game that is going to be able to impose its will against opposing defenses. He knows that's important. And I think they got the guys to do it. I know, I think Trey Sermon is going to have a hell of a year. I think Master Teague is going to be very good for them. I know they're not J.K. Dobbins, but I still think they're going to be very potent in the run game. So it might not even matter on Saturday what the defense looks like. And maybe my therapist likes to say I'm a catastrophizer, right? So maybe this is just me being a catastrophizer.
It is. And well, so actually, if you think about that, you want to see where Fields is. Imagine what Ryan Day's been thinking for the last 6 months, just scheming and devising plays for this offense. And by the way, it could be the greatest. This is not hyperbole. It could be the greatest offense in the history of Ohio State. Because what if Trey Sermon, is 80% J.K. Dobbins? The whole offensive line is back, bigger, stronger, faster. Those guys are beasts. So you have Justin Fields, okay? You could say, we haven't really ever seen a quarterback like him, maybe Terrell Pryor. And
right.
Then you sprinkle in those receivers. I mean, the possibilities for this offense are truly just unlimited.
Yeah.
And, I'm very, very curious to see what kind of game Ryan Day calls, what things he has up his sleeve. Probably won't show you everything he needs to against Nebraska, but over the course of these, 8 to 9 games, it'd be fascinating to see just really what level this offense can get to. And then, and it's like coming off the 2018 defense. Say, look, you don't have to be a top 5 defense, even though you're Ohio State and you should be. Don't be the 70th ranked defense right. in the country, what they were. And if this defense can just be top 25, I mean, look out. It's going to be really fun to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask you a question about Fields. Would you agree with me after what happened last year in the Penn State game and the knee injury and the impact that it ultimately had on their title hopes? Would you agree with me that while they can't put reins on Fields, they do have to be careful about how often they run him? Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I think there should be some type of rule for the offensive line. Like every time he gets hit, they all have to do like 10 extra push-ups in practice. I mean, he keeps that guy upright. I mean, he was clearly nicked up, clearly affected the game plan, coming down the stretch, especially against Clemson.
Oh, huge.
I mean, I would say you don't call any, straight quarterback runs. You scramble and, if it presents itself, take what's there, go down, slide, get hit, or just do not get hit. That has got to be the game plan.
I agree. I would think that if I were Ryan Day, I would really limit his carries to maybe just the red zone. And by the way, I agree with you. And so does Bill Landis. When we talked to Bill back in early July, he said that if Justin Fields were healthy in that Clemson game, they win because they would score on those red zone trips. Not having him as the threat of a runner on that inside zone read really limited to them in what they could do in the red zone. And that really was a huge advantage for Clemson. So, I mean, I would even go so far as to say until I get inside the 25-yard line, that 15-yard line, I wouldn't run him at all. There's no reason for it. You've got 2 very capable backs. You've got a bevy of receivers. You have probably even some other guys you can get to carry the ball from that receiving group, right? A little one of those little pop passes to an H-back or something, right?
Yeah, and that's why I kind of go back to Ryan Day. Like he's just got to sit there, and I mean, he could think of 10 plays just to design specifically for Sloaner's, triple distilled smooth Jameson, like on end arounds. It's just constant. They come up with things. I mean, the amount of weapons that you have at your disposal, and maybe you save it because you end up in that 1 or 2, situations or games in a dogfight, and you gotta, do some RPOs and some Fields runs. But until you're absolutely forced to do it, no freaking way.
All right. So give me one player you're looking forward to, what, not outside of Fields, right? I know I always say outside of the obvious, right? But what I'm really intrigued in are some of these new faces maybe some of these players we haven't talked a ton about, but who are you most looking forward to watching on Saturday?
That's a good question. I think maybe, Sermon's going to be interesting, right? Just trying to replace Dobbins, but maybe the fun guy. I'm on the Sloaner bandwagon with Jamison Jamison Williamson or Williams.
Jamison Williams.
I guess if he's my guy, I should know his name. Right? That should be a prereq.
Yeah. Well, he has that tantalizing breakaway speed, that acceleration and speed where he looks shot out of a cannon, like Ted Ginn did, or Paris Campbell. He's the type of player that's a threat to score from anywhere on the field. He can turn a 10-yard curl into a 60-yard touchdown. He's one of the guys I'm looking forward to as well. I like that pick. I'm gonna say Chris Olave. I feel like he's the one guy that has really been carrying an extra burden this offseason after the way the Fiesta Bowl ended, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what kind of season he's gonna put out. Now I know they've got other receivers. Maybe his touches will be limited, but I think he's going to be your go-to guy as a receiver in this offense. I think they're going to look to him a lot. I think he's going to be Fields' favorite target, and I can't wait to see what kind of new chemistry those two have established. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, if there's a guy out there that's had a long haul between that Clemson game and Justin Fields, Ryan Day, and Chris Olave. Those are the three dudes. I mean, whole team, obviously, but those guys more than anybody.
So, look, I know you're pressed for time here, buddy. But before I get a score prediction from you, I want to go to the other side of the ball. Is there one player on the other side of the ball that you're anxious to watch on Saturday?
I'll go with Brown. I think they talk about him having game-breaking speed in the corner position. Right. So. That's where we're going to have to replace some shoes. Although I guess, that comes out of my mouth and then I think, we don't have Chase Young this year. But I'd say Cam Brown on the defensive side.
Cam Brown. Okay, good. So I was listening to the 4 to 6 with A&B podcast with Bill Landis and Ari Wasserman last week, and they were breaking down the linebackers. And one thing they said that got me all hot and bothered was Taraja Mitchell, they think, is ready to emerge at middle linebacker and is more than likely going to be splitting snaps with Tuff Borland. And I've been a big Mitchell fan, or really rooting for him to emerge. He was a top 50 prospect in the 2018 class. He was, I believe, the number 2 inside linebacker prospect in the country. I know he's probably, chomping at the bit. He's been patient and wait a long time. Fans have been waiting for him. I'm really interested to see what kind of a role Mitchell is going to play on Saturday and going forward, because I do think, without picking out any individual names here, I do think the linebackers as a group, as a unit, have to find another level this season for Ohio State to meet all their goals. So I'm looking forward to that one. All right, PVH, let me move over to you. Give me your final score prediction for this one.
Well, before we do that, I'm going to go on record saying I'm going all positive all year on the linebacking core. I'm not. Are
you okay? All right. I'm going to hold you to that, buddy. I'm going
to. Yeah, there's no more Borland bashing and Werner's too small, and it's just going to be positive thoughts with the linebackers. They're going to execute. They're going to be just fine this year.
All right.
Until they,
until they're not
the end of the season. So yeah, you can definitely hold me to that.
All right, man. Fair enough.
I hope you're right about Mitchell, right? You need to be right about Mitchell.
Indeed.
Well, so, I had a number in my head before we got on, but you kind of talked me into maybe a few more points for Nebraska.
All right.
So I'm going to end up somewhere around, let's see here. I'm going to say 54 to 17 Buckeyes.
54-17. And I had a score in my head, and you talked me into actually bumping up Ohio State's point total. I was going to say 45-24, but I'm going to go 52-24 Ohio State. I do think maybe it takes a quarter or two for that defense to kind of get adjusted, and maybe they give up some early yards and points to Nebraska and a good coach in Scott Frost. But 52-24 Buckeyes. Real quick, we got Michigan opening up, I believe, in Minneapolis against Minnesota. Who do you like?
Is that Friday
game?
Night?
I believe so. I'm actually gonna look this up right now.
Yeah, that's going to be a great game. I'm very excited for that. In fact, it's really the first sporting event I've been excited for since the Clemson game.
Let me pull that up real quick. So this is...
I think Michigan is actually favored by 2.
3.5 is the line. According to ESPN, 3.5 is the line. This is a 4:30 p.m. ABC kick. It is actually going to be played on Saturday night, but it's going to be, ABC's primetime game. Number 18, Michigan against number 21, Minnesota. Michigan, 3.5 point favorite in that game. Who do you like in that one?
I definitely like Minnesota in that game.
Yeah,
I think,
me too.
I think Michigan could be looking at a 3-5 season, and that game is a harbinger of that prediction. So if they blow that game, I think the wheels come off for the season.
Yep. I'm with
Sorry
you.
about the dog.
No, it's okay. I'm with you. All right. So I like Minnesota over Michigan as well. Just too many losses. There are 4 or 5 starters on the offensive line, a brand new quarterback. You lost all those playmakers at wide receiver. Your defense, top 3 tacklers on defense, your top pass rusher, your top corner, all gone. Just too much for Michigan to replace. You're facing a very good Minnesota team who's going to be motivated, and that game is in TCF Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. I like the Gophers. Okay, one more real quick before I let you go. This is an interesting matchup. This is a 12:30 kick on FS1. Penn State visits Indiana. Indiana, interesting team. Michael Penix Jr. is a team coming off its best season since 1993, playing with a lot of confidence. Good dynamic quarterback. They can play defense a little bit. Penn State, no Micah Parsons. Who do you like in that game? It's Penn State, by the way, 6.5 point favorite in that one.
Who's there? Pathetic. Who's Penn State's quarterback? Is it like a second-year starter or third-year starter?
It's Sean Clifford.
Yeah, he just didn't impress me that much last year. So, hell, I'll roll with the Hoosiers on this game for the upset.
Yeah,
straight up.
I'm going to take Penn State in a close one, very close. I would not be surprised though if Indiana pulls it off. But I think I like that Journey Brown, that running back for Penn State. I think he's a good back. I think they'll still be pretty good on defense. They still have Pat Fryermuth, that really good tight end. But Penn State by a hair in that game. I like that one.
Hair.
Yeah, good slate. A pretty good Big Ten slate for the opening week, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's just be honest, we want Penn State to win that game. We just want them 1-0 when we head into Happy Valley. What's Penn State ranked right now?
So I believe they're ranked somewhere in the top 10. I actually just closed out my browser. Somewhere I think
that high.
Yeah, they're top 10.
Wow.
In the AP poll, they're number 8. And in the coaches poll, they're 7.
Huh.
But who knows?
Well, this is exciting. We have those are three intriguing games. So hallelujah. Football's back.
Yeah, pace yourself on Saturday, my friend. So
gone are the days where I start drinking at 10 a.m. not 25 anymore.
Yeah, you and me
as much
both.
as I want to.
All right, buddy. Well, hey, listen, I know you got to bounce. Thanks so much for making the time, and we will connect again on Sunday to recap Ohio State, Nebraska.
You got it.
All right, pal. Have a good night.
All right, my man. Good talking with you.
Good talking with you, buddy. Later. You've been listening to the South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and visit our website at southstandsosu.com.